So now going to the West, we'll start with the 1-8 matchup there as well. The Jazz and the Grizzlies had some close games right now. As of right, once again, this is on Memorial Day. They do play tonight, the fourth game. Um, Utah's up 2-1, but it's been pretty close games. The Jazz stole one. Not the Jazz. The Grizzlies stole one. Sorry, I'm always under this impression in my head when I see the Jazz that they're the underdog because they never. I don't remember last time they've been the one seed. So, but
Probably
yeah,
like Malone and Stockton.
yeah, probably. So, but yeah, it's been a good series. We've seen John Morant, step up to the plate. I mentioned on where I post. I feel he's a top 5 point guard in my opinion. At least deserves to be in the conversation, especially the way he's been playing. I mean, first playoffs and he's already not disappointing. But been a good series so far. This is a pivotal game for him. This is actually pretty good that we're doing this now. I'm gonna throw this to you first. What are your thoughts on this series, and how do you think it's gonna end as of right now? 'Cause
I think the Jazz are going to win.
Okay.
I don't know at what point because I've watched, I think, every game of the series, and there's just a lot of stretches where it's really sloppy.
Yeah.
Like when Ja is not on the court, the Grizzlies, or especially when Ja and Dylan Brooks are both not on the court,
Yeah.
the Grizzlies just don't really have a flow to their offense.
Yeah,
It
they don't
doesn't
have
feel like they
anyone
know
that can
what to
get their
do.
own shot. Those are the only two that
Yeah,
can get their own shot and create for others.
there's been like different lineups where it's like they take a lot of their starters out, but Valanciunas is still out there. And so they try to feed him in the post, but with Gobert on him, it just doesn't work. Because I mean, Gobert's a monster at defending, the paint in the post. And so it feels real sloppy for the Grizzlies, but also they're just a scrappy team. So somehow they maintain it. But I think a large part of that is because Jordan Clarkson has been underperforming. The Jazz bench really hasn't found their stride yet.
Yeah, the
And
Ingles hasn't had
so
much of an impact.
yeah, so when Donovan Mitchell's not out there, even like we saw in that game that the Grizzlies stole, when Donovan Mitchell's not there, the Jazz also kind of feel like they don't necessarily really have a flow. It feels like Jordan Clarkson just pulls up and takes every shot that he gets an opportunity to, and he's just not hitting at a good rate right now. Um, so yeah, I think just with Mitchell there, it brings a lot of stability to Utah. And I think at some point, Ingles and Clarkson and these guys are going to find their footing. Um, and overall, once again, they're just the more talented team. The Grizzlies are so incredibly young. I think they have one of like the five, like they're top five and like youngest roster average age in the league. So they're so young. They don't have a lot of guys with experience in the playoffs and just being there. It's their first time. And so yeah, I have to give the edge to the Jazz, obviously. But is this game four?
Game 4 is
Right?
tonight. Yes.
Yeah, and Utah's up 2-1. Um, yeah, I think Utah probably takes this one, goes up 3-1. But you never know. I mean, like I said, there's just been sloppy stretches from both of these teams, and all it takes is for another 50 something, like 40 something performance from John Morant, if Dylan Brooks is efficient, stuff like that to go on, and maybe we get a coming out performance from Jaren Jackson because he hasn't necessarily been able to do a whole lot in this series yet. So all it takes is a really good game from John, a few of these other guys to step up, and I think they could take a game realistically. So and the key too is they have to be aggressive when Gobert's not on the court, because when he is there, it's just tough for them to get a lot of looks inside. But when he's not there, they have to try and penetrate as much as they possibly can to just get easy points. So yeah, I would say I'd probably go safe here and say Utah in 6, but I wouldn't be surprised if Utah won the next two.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at something. So, yeah. I think for me, I'll agree as of right now. I picked. Did I pick the Jazz or the
Yeah,
Grizzlies
you
to win
picked the
this one? In
Jazz.
like
No,
7 or
you
6.
said you were gonna pick the Grizzlies, but then you changed whenever we started recording, and you went to Utah.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad I did that now. And I think, and this is no, and I know he's coming off an injury. I think it was an ACL. But yeah, Jaren Jackson has not looked very good this series, and he's coming off all that. And I'm surprised we haven't seen a lot of Brandon Clark either. I know you and I like him. So, I think, yeah, you alluded to it. I think they need, in order for the Grizzlies to, take a few games and maybe win the series, they need a third person to step up. It's really just been John Morant and Dylan Brooks on the offensive end. They need, Jaren Jackson's got to hit his shots. Right now he's shooting 25% from 3, and that's not going to cut it. We know he's a
And
good.
Gobert's letting him shoot him.
Yeah,
Like
and
they're
that's another
allowing him to do
thing.
it.
Yeah, like at their especially in crunch time, they're playing a lot. Either I think a few times it's either Jaren Jackson or Valanciunas, especially when it's Jaren Jackson. I mean, that's what killed Gobert and the Jazz in the playoffs was bigs that could stretch, and but the fact that I know he's already got kind of a weird shot. I kind of mentioned I think we were talking the other day like maybe he needs to revisit his form or whatever, just get back to it because it's not hitting right now and
Yeah.
maybe he may just be in a cold streak, but he's got to figure something out because he's in theory their second most talented player. Yeah, I mean, and right now he's not even playing like their fourth or fifth. He's and once again coming off injury. I know that, but hopefully he can figure that out. And yeah, I think you kind of alluded to it, or you already said it. Is that other than Dylan Brooks and John Morant, they don't have any flow offensively. And I think that falls a little bit more on the coaching staff. You got to have some creative plays when those two are on the bench. So,
Yeah.
to get your guys open, get your guys to their spots. The Kyle Andersons, Grayson Allen's. I know Grayson had a good game. I think was it the last game or the game before? He had an okay game. He had like 17 points, which
Yeah.
you'll take that off the bench. So but yeah, I didn't know the stat about how young they were, but looking at their roster now, it makes a lot of sense. So looking forward for the Grizzlies, even if they do lose this series, I think this is a really good building block because now okay, Jaw's
Oh
big
yeah.
time. We know Dylan Brooks will show up too. He's just got to work on not fouling as much. But hey, can't fault a man for effort. And then Jaren's just got to get healthy and get back to him the way he played last year. And then I don't think they have many money tied to contracts, so they may be able to probably won't be able to get a max guy because, like we mentioned before, not many people are willing to go to Memphis. not,
Right.
not a hot spot, but maybe they can get someone that a younger person who wants a max contract, but people aren't really willing to take a risk on them. They can try to take a risk there, but yeah, for the Jazz, yeah, glad to see Donovan Mitchell back, and like you mentioned, once Ingles and the Clarkson settle back into having lesser roles, lesser minutes, maybe lesser shots. Once they settle back in and regain the form that they had, because Clarkson won Sixth Man of the Year, but I think Ingles was very close, was in the consideration too. Neither of them really been playing up to that standard, so I imagine they'll get back to that soon. But yeah, I think the Grizzlies will win Game 4, but I think the Jazz will take 5 and 6. So I think Jazz win in 6, but I could easily if Utah wins Game 4, then the series is over. They're winning in 5. So.
Yeah, if Clarkson and Ingles start turning it on, it's going to be tough because we know that Mitchell's going to perform. We know that Gobert is going to be a defensive force. We know they have other guys that can perform. So it's going to be tough if those two guys specifically start scoring a lot.
Yeah. So and there's a lot of point in that series too. Like I know some people that were saying like, oh, this is not gonna be good for ratings because they wanted Warriors, but I felt like we're still getting really good series from these two, and I'm not even sure if Golden State would have given it to them because granted Steph could go off, but like we saw kind of in the playing games, teams were just focused on taking Steph out of the equation or slowing him down, and Golden State didn't have any other answers from that. So as we all
It would
saw,
have been interesting.
as we all saw,
What
Draymond
continue?
clank two layups
Yeah.
against was it against Memphis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, they would have been interesting from the simple fact that Steph is so good from 3-point range that like Gobert's not really a factor in trying to stop him, And for most other players, Gobert presents a huge problem. But yeah, I mean, they couldn't beat Memphis. If you can't beat Memphis, you shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Simple as that,
Well, Memphis was just a better team. I think that showed. So, all right. So going on to the next series, which actually has been an interesting one, which is the 2-7 Suns Lakers. Suns took Game 4 as of last night. You good, John?
Nope. Yeah, I'll try and fix it.
Okay. Well, I'll just go on while you do that. So yeah, Suns Lakers. Suns won Game 4 the other night, 192. AD's now got a groin injury. We'll see how that affects him going forward. And, we know CP3 had that shoulder issue early in the series, but yeah, I mean, I will say, I know I was very skeptical of him going. I was okay, maybe not skeptical, but I had questions regarding DeAndre, and I think you did too. And I think he's kind of answered some of those. He's been pretty consistent in the playoffs. Hasn't been amazing defensively, but let's be honest, like otherwise he's been pretty good. Been getting double digit boards, efficient offensively. So he's really stepped up in regards to the fact that CP3 hasn't been 100%, which has really hurt the Suns. But I mean, hey, I mean, I think they'll take 2-2 with CP3, even though CP3 was injured. Also, shout out to Cameron Payne, former I think lottery pick too. Hasn't found a home. Really struggled. Hasn't even found minutes. Went from bounce. I think he went from OKC to Chicago, and I don't even know where he went from there until he ended up
He was in the China League.
yeah. So former first rounder, but now he's starting to find footing in Phoenix, and he's really stepped up in the absence of Chris Paul struggling. I know Booker's kind of slowed down the last few playoff games in terms of production and efficiency, but I think that's more of just the Lakers. CP3 is injured, so now we can put more pressure on Devin Booker. But yeah, it's been an interesting series. I'm worried. If I'm a Lakers fan, I'm sweating a little bit because we've seen, AD, another nagging injury, especially a groin injury, which, yeah, I probably, mine was probably not as severe as AD's, but as someone who's dealt with that, you can be fine one day or for like most of the day, then 1 hour is just terrible. Like you can't, it hurts. And like, so we'll see if how he feels going into game 5, but
He's actually already ruled out for Game 5.
see, and that's tough because like 80, I know he had he struggled game 1, but he's a tough mismatch for just for anybody, but especially he was a tough one for the Suns because okay, we can put Crowder on him, but then if 80 starts posting up Crowder and starts finding his post when that's an issue, then we put Ayton on him, well then he can probably just blow right past Ayton. So yeah, we'll see how the Lakers adjust. Kuzma hasn't really been effective at all. I think we're kind of seeing that Kyle Kuzma is just a solid player. He's not going to be a star. He's just, a solid player at most. But yeah, Lakers really, really in a tough spot here, especially as CP3 seems to be getting better and better shoulder wise. If I had a prediction for this series, I'm going to say Suns in 7. I don't think I picked them going into this,
You
but
do
I
not.
think Suns is just 80 groin injury. If he's already ruled out for game 5, I feel like it's pretty severe, and I mean, maybe he'll be able to suit up for 6 and 7, but will he be 100%? And it could flare up at a moment again too. He could re-injure it, re-aggravate it, and and LeBron, we mentioned, hasn't been the LeBron that we've seen in past years, and it seems like that ankle injury has affected him, like he alluded to previously. But yeah, I'm interested to hear what are your thoughts in regards to this.
I'm sticking with my guns. I'm taking the Suns. I think they're going to win this. I think, as we saw in Game 1, when Anthony Davis isn't doing well, the Lakers are not going to win. And I think with Anthony Davis ruled out, I don't think the Lakers are going to win. I think that the way the team is built, and this happens with every team that LeBron is on, is that they're built a very specific way around LeBron. And with Anthony Davis not playing, because unlike a lot of LeBron teams, this is not the LeBron who could like really I don't know if LeBron can drop another 50, 60 point game like he did when he was younger, Like I saw a comment of somebody saying, listen, the key here to seeing LeBron's age, and he's done a great job of hiding it, right? We have not seen a lot of decline from LeBron James. The key here is that he's changed his game, but also the fact that Anthony Davis has sort of taken over as the actual scoring threat is big because LeBron on a lot of teams, I can't remember the last time LeBron was not the leading scorer on a team until this Lakers team. Like the Cavs, I mean, he would score more than Kyrie. Like the guy is one of the all-time greatest scorers ever, but he doesn't really get looked at that because of how good he was at passing. But now at this point in his career, he just doesn't score like he used to. And I think that's age. I think the ankle issue is still bothering him. It feels like when I'm watching these games in the past, we've seen LeBron James just take over and dominate certain games, but it feels like that's not happening with this Lakers team. It feels like Anthony Davis has to be the one that has to be aggressive scoring wise, and LeBron creates shots for teammates. He gets some shots for himself. He just kind of does it all. The rebounds, he does some defensive plays, all that kind of stuff. Leadership, obviously, but he's not the same scoring threat that he might need to be if Anthony Davis is not playing. So we'll see how he plays without Anthony Davis, because maybe he'll prove me wrong and go dominate. but I wonder how much age and the injury are still affecting him and his ability to be as aggressive as he wants to be because he hasn't been able to. Um, so yeah, I think the Suns win this. Um, I think even with Anthony Davis, if Chris Paul was healthy, I think they probably steal game 2 or 3. Because I think that when Chris Paul is healthy and leading this team, we saw like the guy was out there and he literally like couldn't even shoot because of how bothersome the arm was for him. But last game, I think he hit 6 mid-range shots, and in games 1 through 3 combined, he had hit 6 mid-range shots. So I think he is progressing nicely. I'm sticking with my guns here. I think the Suns win. I do think Davis not playing is a big boost for them, and I think it does suck for both Lakers fans and Suns fans. Because for Lakers fans, that's tough for them to win, and for Suns fans, I don't think they wanted to beat the reigning champs without them being quote unquote healthy.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, I feel like you mentioned with the CP3 argument, they're one of their best players wasn't healthy either.
Right.
So I feel like that in my mind that would cancel out. But we all know
Yeah.
fans, well, they'll find excuses. So, all right, so next
I
one.
mean, the LeBron fans are gonna say, "Well, Davis was hurt, and LeBron had an ankle injury, and blah 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 blah."
Alrighty, so going on to the next one. Another good series. Blazers Nuggets. Right now tied 2-2. Game 5 on Tuesday. Kind of been a back and forth series. So I'll let you go first if you for this one. What are your thoughts on this series and how it's going to pan out?
This series has been one of the most back and forth series ever. Like the Nuggets will blow them out one game, and then the Blazers blow them out the next. So I don't know who wins it. What are they tied 2-2 right now?
They're tied to. It's tough because like most of their games have kind of like the even worse than like the Jazz, Grizzlies games. They've been a little bit earlier, but like all these games have been, especially for Central Standard Time, late for us. So like,
Yeah,
especially during the week, like we're not probably gonna watch most of the game, or there's another game on. So
yeah. These tend to be the last game of the day for us, and so that's like when you're going to bed or just other things are happening.
and then like
so
for example on Tuesday it's on NBA TV too. So granted we stream things, but still like, not, especially other people I feel like aren't really keeping eyes on this series.
yeah. So I honestly have no clue who
It's a
wins.
tough one. Yeah,
I feel like I just got to stick with my original prediction at this point and just say the Nuggets
Yeah.
because that's who I started with. I haven't really seen anything that leads me to believe they can't win this. But out of every series, I think this is the most. I just don't know because
Yeah.
as we've seen, the Blazers have enough firepower to go blow out the Nuggets, but the Nuggets also have enough firepower to go blow out the Blazers, and so it just really depends on who gets hot.
Yeah, and I think I will say for the Nuggets, really, this is where you miss Jamal Murray, just because another guard that maybe Dame or CJ has to chase around and exert more energy on the defensive end, and then maybe they're not as fresh on the offensive end, and then now they're guarding what Campazano and Austin Rivers, like
Yeah.
they could just focus more on offense, and then now more's on Jokic, and I know Michael Porter Jr. He had stepped up, but didn't have a few. I think he had a few not great games last few games, so we'll see if he can bring it back. I'm still going to stick with Nuggets, but I think it'll be Nuggets in 7, and just because of home court. But wouldn't shock me if once again Portland, Dame and CJ, they can get hot anytime. And I hope for their sake they win. But it's a tough series to predict. It's been a good series. I mean, game 3 was good, and game 1 was solid. But yeah, like you mentioned, game 2 and 4 kind of just they weren't as interesting. On top of the fact that they were super late in the evening for us. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. But those are definitely a series I'll keep an eye on. I'll try to watch next time. So that leads us to the last one for just in general and the West. I forget. The Clippers are the 4th seed. Mavs are the 5th seed. Have that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Series decided 2-2. It looked like it was going to be real bad for the Clippers. Mavs stole both games in LA, but now the Clippers have came back, won both games in Dallas. For me, this series, I mean, it's just been like, if it's Luka's been good, been great, but when they've won the other games, it's been because Tim Hardaway Jr. has been hitting shots and Porzingis has been contributing. And really, I put this on Porzingis. He's got to step up and be better. I know he's coming off injury, but he's the key for them to win this series, and he's got to be better because they don't have an answer for Porzingis. We saw last game they had answers. They finally were able to slow down Luka and really just frustrate him and just make it really hard on him because the first two games we saw it was just easy for him. He was in a group, but they finally seemed to get him out of his zone a little bit. And I'm interested to see if the Mavs too maybe have once again like a few plays that don't involve Luka when he's not on the floor or when he is on the floor. Maybe a few more, like I said, Kristaps post ups or maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. off some screens. I think too that they're kind of missing Seth Curry right now, another solid shooter. Because I mean, other than Tim Hardaway, who's even can be streaky at times, they really don't have a consistent shooter. Next best one is Maxi Kleber, or Kleba. I love that name. But once again, he's doesn't get many minutes because he's a awkward four. Or he's like not fast enough to chase most small ball fours, but not big enough to deal with. So it's already awkward there for awkward matchup for them. So, yeah, I think did I pick Mavs? I forgot my pick for this initially.
I think we
both went Clippers,
I
though,
don't.
right?
I picked Clippers. I don't. I think you picked Clippers,
Okay.
but I might be wrong.
Well, if I did pick Clippers, regardless, I'm gonna say the Clippers win this in 7. I haven't seen much as I like Kristaps and I want him to be better. I don't think I'm not confident that he can be, and the fact that the Clippers have the momentum right now and they're going back home, I expected to win Game 5. I expect Mavs to hold on and win a gritty Game 6, but then I expect, especially with all the skepticism and criticism around the Clippers now, like everyone, they're no longer the front runners. And I think that winning these past 2 games was good for them to show that they can deal with the pressure because everyone kind of started writing them off.
Right.
So yeah, I expect Clippers to win in 7 and take care of business here. But what about you?
Yeah, this series has been interesting because the Mavericks came out like crazy, right? Like the first game, they just dominated from 3-point range. And then I didn't think they'd get better, but game 2, they hit like 56 or 7% of their threes, and they were shooting a lot of them. And so they won the first 2 games. A lot of people started riding off the Clippers. I wasn't ready to fully give up on them, but it just seemed like, man, all Dallas has to do is win one of the next 2 at home. That's all they got to do, and it's over, right? 3-0, 3-1. I mean, we've seen 3-1s, specifically the Clippers have choked one, but at that point, historically, it's pretty much over. You just got to win one more. The other team has a mountain to climb. But the Clippers, they responded well. They stole home court advantage back by winning the 2 games away. And I think the difference here between right now and last year has just been Paul George's performing. We saw last year he wasn't stepping up. This year he's having a really good series. He's being efficient. I think he's shooting like 50% from the field on the series so far. And it's actually, funnily enough, I mean, we made our Instagram post that was the first round playoff keys to victory. And the first one was Clippers Mavericks, right? And the Mavericks, Porzingis and Hardaway need to both play well, right? They tend to sort of alternate on who does well, but when they both play well, the Mavericks are going to win. And that happened in game 2. Porzingis came out, dominated. Luka obviously did what Luka does, but Hardaway also had a really good game. Which shout out to my roommate Dane because he's a Mavericks fan, and these were his points that he made on how they need to win. And then also bomb away from 3. Once again, they did that in the first 2 games. Now the difference is in games 3 and 4, they didn't do those things. They were not hitting 3-pointers at the same rate that they were. And I think a large part of that is because if you look at the Clippers, the things they need to do to win: guard Luka without doubling. They have stopped double teaming Luka because they understand it's not working. We have to live with him beating us, which credit not credit, but it's notable that Luka is hurt. Like I can't remember exactly what happened, but he has some sort of nagging injury that potentially almost held him out for last game, but he's playing through it. And I think that is affecting him. I think it was like a head injury or something. But also the other ones, Paul George needs to get hot. He's done that, and Kawhi needs to take over in the fourth quarter. Kawhi is on a crazy efficient hot streak right now, shooting like over 65% in the last 3 games. He's dominating in the way that he needs to on the court. And so, yeah, the momentum has completely swung to the Clippers. I'm sticking with them winning it. My issues with Dallas remain. I believe in Luka and what he's able to do, but like you said, besides Tim Hardaway, I don't know if they really have other shot creators. And so if Tim Hardaway's struggling, which I think he got hurt last game. I don't know how serious it was, but it looked pretty bad when he was on the floor. I don't know if he left the game because I didn't finish watching it,
Yeah, I don't
but
know. It says he played. I don't see him on the injury report, at least on ESPN
okay.
for Game 5. But he only played 25 minutes last Game 4. Had 4 points. It was not a good game for him.
Yeah. And so if that injury, even if he's plays through it, if it's nagging him at all, I mean, like I said, they're missing Seth Curry. They're missing a guy like that who can create his own shot, can shoot
Be
threes, all
consistent
that
from
kind of
three
stuff.
too.
Right.
That's the
Right.
big thing too.
Because Seth, he was that to a T last year. I mean, he was really impactful for them. And I mean, I think Josh Richardson and the defense he provides is valuable. But right now, I mean, they just need more offensively to really help them. And I mean, Seth Curry's not going to show up, so it's got to be Porzingis, in my opinion. Like, he has to perform. He has to start somehow creating his own shot because the Clippers don't have very good paint protectors. Like, Zubac he's all right, but Ibaka's not even playing. So, I mean, you're 7'3", you're bigger. I don't know if I imagine he's probably not stronger than Zubac because Porzingis isn't like the strongest guy, but like he's not weak by any means. And so it just feels like he needs to start dominating a little more inside. Although he is a guy who can stretch the floor, like they need a presence inside that can really start making a difference here, because that'll open up things for the 3-point shooters on their team. So yeah, I think Clippers win in 6 or 7. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the next 2, just because of the way that the Kawhi and Paul George are playing right now. The momentum is completely shifted towards the Clippers, and it feels like too. They have a confidence that is different than last year's. Last year it felt cocky. This year it feels like Ty Lue and the comments that he made of like, hey, we're not worried. We're just going to simplify some things defensively, and we're going to come out here. We're going to try and win game 3. Like, that just feels a little different to where, and that's not a thing about Doc Rivers, because Doc Rivers is a fantastic coach and he's doing wonders in Philadelphia. But I think his comments along with like Paul George, like, hey, we're not worried. You know, it feels a little different compared to last year where it was kind of cocky and like trash talking and all this stuff. So now it feels like they're focusing on themselves as opposed to their opponents.
Yeah, I remember last year they're busy tripping at the Blazers to go into Cabo, and then they end up going there
they didn't
too.
even play. Like,
well, it's because of the Paul George Damian rivalry. I think Paul probably tweeted something at Damian, and Damian, it started the whole thing.
They were focusing on people they weren't even playing.
Yeah.
Like, focus on your opponent, and then maybe they would have beat the Nuggets in that series.
Yeah. So, alrighty. So that is it. That's all the playoff. Our reaction to what's happened in the playoffs. As of once again, this is on Memorial Day before the games today. So who knows? But I imagine we'll be back later in the week. We'll see if some of these series will wrap up. See if some of these series are still competitive. And we'll see how that fares. But otherwise, I think that'll wrap it for us. As per usual, our Instagram's our main source where you want to hit us up at. John's doing amazing work there. It's at Shut Up and Ball Pod. And then Facebook, we have our page, Shut Up and Ball. And then our Twitter is just at Shut Up and Ball as well. But once again, wherever you're listening or watching, rate, comment, subscribe, especially comment, and we'll get to you. But other than that, that is a wrap. Anything else you'd like to mention or say, John?
Hey, fans, stop throwing things at players and spitting on people.
Yeah, like, stop wasting. If you're gonna do that, don't waste your money and go to the court. Just go home and do that. Do that in your home.
You're wasting. Like, imagine I wonder. I know there's a few of these guys that have had season tickets. I wonder, like, I don't think they're gonna refund them.
I think that's probably a part of the terms and conditions. Where like, oh, if you like violate things and we have to throw you out, you're not getting your money back.
Yeah.
Thanks for the money, because we're still gonna resell your seat, but
and imagine, I mean, for some of these fans like the Jazz, or like for the Knicks, the Celtics, like, it's kind of looking like they're gonna lose their series, so there's not a whole lot of more games you can go to, right? But like the Jazz, I mean, they should go to the second round. So those 3 guys, if they're season ticket holders, they don't get to go to those games anymore. Yeah. Like, just
gotta watch
sucks for you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Message of the day: just your actions have consequences. Like it's like, this is elementary stuff, people. Come on. So otherwise, though, hope you enjoy your playoff games, and we'll see you later.